Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Liberty, watching the massive alien fleet appear in the sky above his home planet. His hands shook slightly as he counted the enemy ships through the main viewing screen. 847 vessels hung in space like dark clouds blocking out the stars. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet," said Lieutenant Sam Carter from his communication station. His voice was steady, but Jake could see the fear in the young man's eyes. "Put it through," Jake ordered, straightening his uniform. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 months, ever since Earth made first contact with the galaxy. The news had not been good. Humans were late to join the galactic community, and most alien species saw them as primitive and weak. The main screen flickered, and a huge reptilian face appeared. The creature had dark green scales, yellow eyes, and rows of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was deep and threatening. "I am War Prime Thexcalar of the Draconian Hegemony 3rd Assault Fleet," the alien said. "You will surrender your planet within 72 hours, or we will take it by force. This is the only warning you will receive." Jake took a deep breath before responding. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. We cannot accept your terms. Earth is our home, and we will defend it." The Draconian leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your 23 ships against our 800? You are either very brave or very stupid, human. We have conquered 400 worlds. None have ever defeated us." The transmission ended and the bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew. These men and women were the best Earth had to offer, but they all knew the truth. Their small fleet could not win a direct fight against the Draconians. "Admiral," said Commander Ryan Torres, walking up to Jake's command chair. Ryan was head of Earth's intelligence operations and one of the few people who knew about humanity's secret plan. "Should we begin protocol blackout?" Jake nodded slowly. "Send the signal to all defense stations. Tell them we have 72 hours to prepare." Across the solar system, hidden bases received the coded message. On Earth's surface, Dr. Lisa Bennett was working in her laboratory when her computer screen flashed with the alert. Lisa was a xenobiologist who had spent the last 3 months studying everything humans had learned about Draconian biology and psychology. "It's time," she said to her assistant, Dr. Kevin Walsh. Kevin was a physicist who had been working on humanity's most secret project. For years, even before first contact, human scientists had been developing something that no other species in the galaxy possessed. Meanwhile, Captain Amy Foster was flying her reconnaissance ship around the edge of the solar system, staying hidden from Draconian sensors. Amy was known as the best pilot in the human fleet, and her job was to watch the alien ships and report their movements. "They're not moving yet," Amy reported over her radio. "The big ships are staying in high orbit. Looks like they're waiting for our answer." Back on Earth, President Helen Clark was meeting with her advisors in the emergency bunker beneath the Capitol. The weight of humanity's survival rested on her shoulders, but she knew that Jake Morrison and his team had a plan that might save them all. "How long do we need?" the President asked General Pete Collins, her military advisor. 60 hours minimum, Pete replied. "We need time to coordinate with every major city on the planet. This won't work unless we can get everyone working together." The General was talking about humanity's greatest secret. For decades, human scientists had discovered something amazing about their own species. Unlike every other intelligent race in the galaxy, humans could temporarily link their minds together while still keeping their individual thoughts and personalities. Other species had tried to achieve collective consciousness, but they always lost their individual identities in the process. Humans were different. They could work as one mind when needed, then return to being individuals afterward. This discovery had led to the development of Earth's ultimate defense system. Hidden generators placed around the planet could create a quantum displacement field, but only if billions of humans focused their minds together at the same time. The field wouldn't destroy enemy ships. Instead, it would move them to a parallel dimension where they couldn't hurt anyone. The aliens would simply vanish from normal space and time. Dr. Emma Gray, a xenopsychologist, had studied the behavior patterns of aggressive alien species. She, knew that the Draconians would not expect humans to have any advanced technology. They had conquered so many worlds that they had become overconfident. The Draconians think we're primitive, Emma told the other scientists. They've never faced anything like what we're planning. No other species has ever made an entire fleet disappear. As the first day passed, the Draconian fleet remained in position above Earth. War Prime Thexcalar was confident that the humans would surrender. Every other species had given up when faced with his massive fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Davis was coordinating the human resistance from a command center deep underground. Beth had spent years planning for this moment, working with civilian leaders to prepare the population for what was coming. We need 4 billion people ready to focus at the same time, Beth explained to her staff. Every major city, every town, every settlement, they all need to concentrate on the same thought at exactly the same moment. The plan was dangerous and had never been tested on such a large scale. If it failed, humanity would be defenseless against the Draconian attack. But if it worked, Earth would achieve something no other world in galactic history had ever accomplished. As the second day began, Jake Morrison looked out at the alien fleet and smiled grimly. The Draconians had no idea what was coming. They thought they were facing another weak species that would surrender without a real fight. They were about to learn that humans were unlike any other species in the galaxy. The 72-hour deadline passed like a countdown to disaster. War Prime Thexcalar sat in his command chair aboard the massive Draconian flagship, watching the timer reach 0. The humans had not responded to his final demand for surrender. Foolish creatures, he growled to his second-in-command. Begin the bombardment. Target their largest cities first. We will show them the price of defying the hegemony. The Draconian fleet moved into attack formation. 12 enormous dreadnoughts positioned themselves above Earth's major population centers. War Prime Thexcalar had done this same operation hundreds of times before. First came the orbital bombardment to break their spirit, then ground forces to claim the planet. Lieutenant Sam Carter watched the alien ships from his station on the Liberty. His hands moved quickly across his control panel, monitoring every movement of the enemy fleet. Admiral Morrison, the Draconians are powering up their main weapons. Jake Morrison stood calmly on his bridge, even though his heart was racing. Everything depended on perfect timing. Send the signal, he ordered. Tell Earth Command that Protocol Blackout is now active. Deep underground, Dr. Kevin Walsh sat at his control station surrounded by banks of computers and quantum field generators. His screen showed data from hidden installations all around the planet. Each location was connected to the others through a network that had taken years to build. Field generators are online, Kevin reported to Dr. Lisa Bennett, who stood beside him. We're getting confirmation from all 7 continents. Everyone is ready. Above ground, something amazing was happening in cities across Earth. In New York, millions of people stopped what they were doing and focused their minds on a single thought. In London, families gathered in their homes and concentrated together. In Tokyo, crowds of people stood in the streets, all thinking the same thing at the same moment. Captain Amy Foster was still flying her reconnaissance ship near the edge of the solar system when she saw it begin. Through her ship's sensors, she watched the first Draconian vessels start to flicker like bad television signals. What the hell? She whispered, checking her instruments. The readings made no sense. 3 destroyer-class ships on the outer edge of the alien formation were becoming transparent. War Prime Thexcalar was about to give the order to fire when his tactical officer shouted in alarm. Sir, we're losing contact with the outer patrol ships. What do you mean losing contact? The War Prime demanded. They're gone, sir. 3 destroyers just disappeared from our sensors. No explosion, no debris, no distress signals. They just vanished. The reptilian commander stared at his main screen in disbelief. Where 3 ships had been floating in space moments before, there was now nothing but empty starfield. On Earth, President Helen Clark was in the emergency bunker with her advisors. General Pete Collins was coordinating with military units around the world, while Commander Tony Mitchell monitored communications from the alien fleet. It's working, Tony reported, his voice filled with amazement. The Draconians are starting to panic. Their communications are going crazy. Above the planet, more ships began to disappear. Not just the small destroyers now, but cruisers and battleships too. The vanishing happened silently, without any visible cause. One moment a ship was there, the next it was gone. War Prime Thexkalar watched in growing horror as his fleet dissolved around him. In the first hour, 23 ships disappeared. By the second hour, the number had grown to 57. His crew was terrified, and he could hear fear in their voices as they reported each new vanishing. "Run full scans on the remaining ships," he ordered his science officer. "Find out what's causing this." But the Draconian sensors found nothing. No weapon signatures, no energy beams, no attacking ships. Their vessels were simply ceasing to exist. Dr. Emma Gray was monitoring the alien communications from her station on Earth. She could hear the panic in the Draconian voices as they tried to understand what was happening to their fleet. "They have no idea," she reported to the other scientists. "Their technology can't detect what we're doing. They've never seen anything like this before. The quantum displacement field was working perfectly. Every ship that approached Earth with hostile intent was being moved to a parallel dimension. The aliens weren't being destroyed. They were being relocated to a place where they couldn't harm anyone." Colonel Beth Davis was coordinating with civilian leaders around the world. The concentration of 4 billion human minds was the most incredible thing she had ever experienced. She could feel the collective focus of her entire species, all working together for the same goal. "Field strength is holding steady," she reported. "The population is maintaining perfect synchronization. Everyone knows what depends on this." By the 6th hour, War Prime Thexkalar had lost over 200 ships. His remaining commanders were begging him to retreat, but he was too proud to admit defeat. No Draconian fleet had ever been defeated by a primitive species. "Keep firing," he ordered. "Find their weapon and destroy it." But there was no weapon to find. The Draconian energy beams passed harmlessly through Earth's atmosphere, while more of their ships continued to vanish. Even their most powerful dreadnoughts were disappearing one by one. Captain Amy Foster was amazed by what she was seeing. The massive alien fleet that had seemed so threatening was melting away like ice in the sun. "Command, this is Foster. The Draconian fleet is down to less than 100 ships. They're trying to retreat." Jake Morrison allowed himself a small smile. "Let them try, Captain. See what happens when they attempt to leave." War Prime Thexkalar finally gave the order to withdraw. His remaining ships turned away from Earth and began moving toward the edge of the solar system. But even in retreat, the vanishing continued. Ships disappeared as they tried to flee, leaving their comrades behind in the empty darkness of space. By the end of 18 hours, only 31 Draconian vessels remained out of the original 847. War Prime Thexkalar sat alone on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his once mighty fleet reduced to a handful of scattered ships. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How did these primitive humans do this to us?" On Earth, the population was exhausted but victorious. 4 billion people had focused their minds together and achieved something no other species in the galaxy had ever accomplished. They had made an entire invasion fleet disappear without firing a single shot. The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the central systems of the Draconian hegemony, Supreme Warlord Kithexmore received the impossible report from the sole surviving ship of the 3rd Assault Fleet. The entire fleet is gone? Kithexmore roared, his massive claws scraping against his command throne. 800 ships do not simply vanish. The trembling communication officer repeated the message from War Prime Thexkalar's final transmission. "He says the humans have some kind of weapon that makes ships disappear. No explosions, no debris, nothing. They just stop existing." For 800 years, the Draconian hegemony had never lost an entire fleet. They were the most feared military force in the galaxy, and their reputation struck terror into the hearts of countless species. Now a single primitive world had destroyed their most powerful assault force without a trace. On the peaceful world of Altair 7, Ambassador Kelthera of the Ethereal Collective received the news with growing concern. The Ethereals were an ancient species known for their wisdom and advanced technology. They had been watching humanity with mild interest since first contact, but now they were deeply worried. "Call an emergency council meeting," Kelthera told her aide. "If the humans can destroy a Draconian fleet without leaving evidence, they may be more dangerous than anyone realized." Throughout the galaxy, alien species that had ignored Earth were now paying very close attention. Merchant ships that traded between star systems began avoiding routes that passed near human space. Even the bravest captains refused to travel anywhere close to Earth's solar system. Agent Mike Turner was humanity's undercover operative on the trade station Nexus Prime, the galaxy's busiest commercial hub. He sat in a crowded bar, listening to conversations between dozens of different alien species. Everyone was talking about the same thing. "I heard the humans have a planet-killer weapon," whispered a blue-skinned Valerian trader to his companion. "Something that can destroy entire fleets instantly." "My cousin works for a shipping company," said a four-armed Nixari pilot. "They've canceled all routes to that sector. Nobody wants to risk it." Mike smiled to himself as he sipped his drink. The aliens were terrified, and they didn't even know the truth yet. Earth hadn't destroyed the Draconian fleet. They had simply moved it somewhere else. But the galaxy didn't need to know that detail. Back on Earth, General Pete Collins was meeting with President Helen Clark and her cabinet. The success of Protocol Blackout had saved humanity, but it had also created new problems. "Every major alien government is demanding answers," Pete reported. "The Galactic Council wants to send investigators to Earth. Some species are talking about forming a coalition against us." President Clark nodded thoughtfully. "What do our intelligence reports say about their intentions?" Commander Tony Mitchell opened his datapad and read the latest information. "Most species are too afraid to take direct action, but the Draconian hegemony is preparing something big. Their supreme warlord is calling for a massive revenge attack." Meanwhile, Dr. Rachel Stone was working in her laboratory, analyzing the quantum field data from the Disappearance event. Rachel was one of Earth's top physicists, and she had helped develop the technology that made Protocol Blackout possible. "The field generators performed perfectly," she told Dr. Kevin Walsh over their secure communication link. "We could maintain the displacement effect for much longer if needed. The question is whether we'll have to." On the edge of human space, Captain Amy Foster was conducting long-range reconnaissance missions in her stealth ship. Her job was to watch for any new alien activity near Earth's solar system. What she found was both encouraging and troubling. "Command, this is Foster," she reported to Admiral Jake Morrison. "I'm detecting scout ships from at least 6 different species. They're staying well outside the system, but they're definitely watching us." Jake Morrison was in his office aboard the Liberty, studying reports from around the galaxy. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had changed everything. Humanity had gone from being ignored to being the most talked-about species in galactic history. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sam Carter, entering Jake's office with a priority message. "We're receiving communication requests from the Ethereal Collective, the Zephyrian Republic, and the Free Worlds Alliance. They all want to establish diplomatic contact." Jake looked up from his reports with interest. Before the incident, none of these major galactic powers had shown any interest in humanity. Now they were practically begging for meetings. "Set up secure channels," Jake ordered, "but make it clear that any diplomatic ships approaching Earth must follow our safety protocols. We don't want any accidents." The warning was necessary because Earth's quantum displacement field was still active. Dr. Lisa Bennett had been monitoring the system continuously, making sure it would react to any new threats. The field could tell the difference between hostile and peaceful intentions, but it was better to be careful. On the Draconian homeworld, Supreme Warlord Kythexmore was gathering the largest military force in his species' history. The humiliation of losing an entire fleet to humans could not be tolerated. Every available ship was being called back to the core systems. "We will send the Grand Armada," he declared to his war council. 10,000 ships, including our most powerful dreadnoughts. The humans will learn what happens when they challenge the hegemony. But other species were making different calculations. The Valerian Trade Federation was secretly negotiating with human representatives hoping to establish profitable business relationships. The peaceful Altarians were considering requesting Earth's protection from Draconian expansion. Dr. Emma Gray was analyzing all the intercepted alien communications from her monitoring station. As a xenopsychologist, she understood how different species thought and reacted to threats. The galaxy is dividing into 3 groups, she reported to Earth's leadership. Those who want to destroy us, those who want to use us, and those who want to hide from us. None of them understand what really happened to the Draconian fleet. The truth was humanity's greatest secret. The quantum displacement field didn't destroy enemy ships. It moved them to a parallel dimension where they continued to exist, but couldn't return to normal space. The Draconian crews were alive and unharmed, just trapped in a place they couldn't escape from. Colonel Beth Davis was preparing Earth's defenses for whatever came next. The success of Protocol Blackout had proven that humanity could work together when survival was at stake. But maintaining that unity would be the real challenge. We need to be ready for anything, she told her staff. The Draconians won't give up after losing one fleet. They'll come back with everything they have. As news of the fleet's disappearance continued to spread, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. Trade routes shifted away from human space, creating new economic opportunities for some species while destroying others. Military alliances formed and broke apart as governments tried to decide how to respond to humanity's mysterious power. The age of human insignificance was over. Earth had become the most feared and respected world in the galaxy, all because they had learned to make their enemies simply vanish into the dark. 2 weeks after the Draconian fleet vanished, a new group of ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. These vessels were different from the aggressive warships that had come before. They were sleek and silver, marked with the peaceful symbols of the ethereal collective. Ambassador Kelthera stood on the bridge of her diplomatic ship, the Harmony. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that showed both wisdom and concern. The ethereals were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and they had seen many strange things in their long history. But they had never encountered anything like what happened to the Draconian fleet. Send a message to the humans, Kelthera told her communication officer. Tell them we come in peace and request permission to approach their world. We wish to understand what happened here. On Earth, President Helen Clark was meeting with her advisors in the secure conference room beneath the Capitol. The message from the ethereals had been expected. These aliens were known for their fairness and advanced science. If anyone could figure out humanity's secret, it would be them. Should we let them approach? Asked General Pete Collins. They might discover how our defense system works. Commander Tony Mitchell shook his head. We can't keep avoiding contact forever. The ethereals are respected throughout the galaxy. If we refuse to meet with them, other species will think we have something terrible to hide. President Clark made her decision. Send them a response. Tell them they can approach but slowly and with minimal escort. We'll meet with them, but on our terms. The ethereal ships moved carefully into the solar system, their sensors scanning everything around them. Ambassador Kelthera had brought her best scientists and diplomats, hoping to solve the mystery that had shocked the galaxy. Dr. Zethalan, the ethereal chief scientist, was studying his instruments with growing amazement. Ambassador, I'm detecting quantum field fluctuations throughout this entire star system. The humans have built some kind of massive technological network. On Earth's surface, Dr. Rachel Stone was monitoring the alien approach from her laboratory. Her quantum field detectors were showing that the ethereal ships carried no weapons and had no hostile intentions. The displacement field recognized them as peaceful visitors and left them alone. They're safe to approach, Rachel reported to Admiral Jake Morrison. The field isn't reacting to them at all. Whatever they're planning, it's not an attack. Jake Morrison prepared to meet with the aliens aboard the orbital station Unity 1. This would be humanity's first real diplomatic contact since the fleet disappeared. Everything they said would be analyzed by alien governments across the galaxy. When the meeting began, Ambassador Kelthera got straight to the point. Admiral Morrison, we need to understand what happened to the Draconian fleet. The entire galaxy is in chaos because of this event. Jake looked across the conference table at the elegant alien diplomat. He had been preparing for this conversation for days, working with Earth's best negotiators to decide how much truth to reveal. The Draconians came here to conquer our world, Jake said calmly. We defended ourselves using methods they didn't expect. That's all I can tell you. Dr. Zeth Allen leaned forward with interest. Our sensors indicate you have created some kind of quantum displacement technology. This is far beyond what we believed humans were capable of developing. Dr. Lisa Bennett, who was representing Earth's scientific community, chose her words carefully. We've been working on defensive technologies for many years. Perhaps we're not as primitive as other species assumed. The ethereal scientist pulled out a complex scanning device and showed the readings to his ambassador. The quantum signatures are unlike anything in our databases, but there's something else, something even more remarkable. He turned to the humans with amazement in his large dark eyes. Your defensive system requires coordinated mental activity from billions of individuals. This should be impossible for any species to achieve. Commander Tony Mitchell, who was handling the diplomatic aspects of the meeting, decided it was time to reveal part of the truth. Humans have certain abilities that other species might not possess. We can work together in ways that surprise even ourselves. Ambassador Kelthera was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. In all her centuries of experience with different alien races, she had never heard of a species that could coordinate billions of minds while maintaining individual consciousness. You're saying that your entire population can focus their thoughts together? She asked. Without losing their personal identity? Dr. Emma Gray, who had joined the meeting as humanities expert on alien psychology, nodded. It's something we discovered about ourselves only recently. We can achieve temporary collective consciousness when we need to, then return to being individuals afterward. The revelation shocked the ethereal delegation. Dr. Zeth Allen's instruments were detecting the quantum field generators hidden around Earth, but he was beginning to understand that the technology was only part of the story. The field generators are just tools, he said slowly. The real power comes from your people's minds working in perfect harmony. You've created a defense system that runs on collective human consciousness. President Clark, who had been listening to the meeting through a secure communication link, decided to authorize the release of more information. She sent a message to Admiral Morrison, giving him permission to explain the basics of how Protocol Blackout worked. The displacement field moves hostile objects to a parallel dimensional space, Jake explained. They're not destroyed, just relocated where they can't cause harm. The field can tell the difference between aggressive and peaceful intentions. Ambassador, Kelthera understood the implications immediately. This is why we can approach safely while the Draconian fleet disappeared. Your system only affects those who come with hostile intent. The meeting continued for several hours as the Ethereals learned more about humanity's unique capabilities. They discovered that humans had spent decades developing their collective consciousness abilities in secret, knowing that they would need every advantage when they finally encountered hostile aliens. Dr. Rachel Stone shared some of the scientific principles behind the quantum displacement technology, while Dr. Emma Gray explained how human psychology differed from other species in the galaxy. We maintain our individuality even when working as a collective, Emma said. Other species lose themselves when they try to merge minds. Humans can be both one and many at the same time. When the meeting ended, Ambassador Kelthera had a complete understanding of what made humanity so dangerous. It wasn't just their technology. It was their unique ability to unite billions of minds for a common purpose while keeping their personal identities intact. We will report our findings to the Galactic Council, she told the humans. But I believe this information will change everything. You have capabilities that no other species possesses. As the ethereal ships prepared to leave Earth's solar system, Dr. Zeth Allen made one final observation. The displacement field is still active, isn't it? You could make any hostile fleet disappear at a moment's notice. Admiral Jake Morrison smiled. Earth is always prepared to defend itself, Ambassador. We hope that knowledge will encourage peaceful contact rather than conquest attempts. The ethereals departed with the truth about humanity's power, carrying news that would reshape galactic politics forever. Earth had revealed just enough of their secret to establish their position as the galaxy's newest and most formidable civilization. 1 month after the ethereal investigation, the galaxy had changed completely. Word of humanity's incredible abilities spread from system to system, carried by traders, diplomats, and frightened military officers. Earth was no longer an unknown world on the edge of civilized space. It had become the most talked-about planet in galactic history. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in his new office at Earth Defense Command, looking at reports from across the galaxy. His desk was covered with requests for meetings, trade agreements, and military alliances. Species that had never bothered to contact humanity were now desperate to establish friendly relations. Admiral, we have another priority message from the Valerian Trade Federation, said Lieutenant Sam Carter, entering with a stack of communication chips. They're offering exclusive trading rights for their entire sector. Jake shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, they wouldn't even return our calls. Now they're begging to do business with us. The change in galactic politics was dramatic. Smaller species that had lived in fear of Draconian expansion were now requesting Earth's protection. The peaceful Altarians had sent a formal request for a defensive alliance. Even the proud Zephyrian Republic was hinting that they might be interested in cooperation. Dr. Lisa Bennett was now Earth's chief diplomatic scientist, working with alien delegations who wanted to understand human technology. She spent her days explaining the basics of collective consciousness to species who couldn't believe such a thing was possible. The key is that we don't lose ourselves when we work together, she told a group of amazed alien scientists. We can be individuals and a collective at the same time. This is what makes our defense system work. But not everyone in the galaxy was ready to accept humanity's new position. On the Draconian homeworld, Supreme Warlord Kithexmore was preparing for the largest military operation in his species' history. The humiliation of losing the Third Assault Fleet burned in his mind like acid. Bring me every ship we have, he ordered his fleet commanders. Call back the border patrols, the exploration fleets, even the training squadrons. We will show the galaxy that the hegemony is still the dominant power. The Draconian Grand Armada was a sight that would have terrified any other species. 10,000 ships of war, including massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. The fleet was so large that it took 3 days just to move into formation. Captain Amy Foster was conducting long-range reconnaissance when she spotted the approaching armada. Her stealth ship's sensors nearly overloaded trying to count all the enemy vessels. "Command, this is Foster," she reported with barely controlled excitement. "You're not going to believe this. I'm detecting over 10,000 Draconian ships heading for Earth. It's the biggest fleet I've ever seen." On Earth, President Helen Clark called an emergency meeting of her cabinet. The entire leadership of humanity gathered in the secure bunker as reports of the approaching armada came in from space. 10,000 ships, said General Pete Collins, looking at the tactical displays. That's more than the entire combined fleets of most galactic alliances. Commander Tony Mitchell was monitoring alien communications from across the galaxy. "Everyone's watching this, Madam President. If we can't stop this fleet, our reputation as a galactic power will be destroyed." But Dr. Rachel Stone was calm as she checked her quantum field generators. "The displacement field is ready. It doesn't matter if they bring 10 ships or 10,000. The result will be the same." Secretary Alex Parker, who had been handling humanity's new diplomatic relationships, understood the bigger picture. "This isn't just about destroying another Draconian fleet. This is about showing the galaxy that Earth is the new dominant power." The Grand Armada approached Earth's solar system like a moving wall of death. Supreme Warlord Kithexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that no defense could stop such a massive force. "The humans destroyed one fleet with their mysterious weapon," he told his commanders. "But they cannot make 10,000 ships disappear. We will overwhelm whatever trick they used before." Dr. Kevin Walsh was monitoring the approaching fleet from his control center. The quantum field generators around Earth were humming with power. ready to activate the moment the enemy ships crossed into the displacement zone. "Field strength is at maximum," he reported to the other scientists. "The entire population is ready to focus their minds together. We can maintain the field for as long as needed." Colonel Beth Davis was coordinating with civilian leaders around the world. The experience of collective consciousness had become easier for humanity after their first success. Billions of people were ready to unite their thoughts at a moment's notice. "All population centers are standing by," she reported. "Everyone knows what to do. When the signal comes, we'll have the largest collective consciousness event in human history." The moment of truth came when the Draconian Grand Armada crossed the boundary of Earth's solar system. Supreme Warlord Sci-Fi gave the order to attack, expecting to overwhelm the human defenses with sheer numbers. Instead, something impossible happened. The massive fleet began to vanish even faster than the first one had. Entire squadrons of ships disappeared in seconds. Dreadnoughts that had taken years to build simply ceased to exist. "What's happening?" Sci-Fi screamed at his crew. "How are they doing this?" But there was no answer. The quantum displacement field was working perfectly, moving hostile ships to the parallel dimension where they couldn't return. The field had been designed to handle any size fleet, and 10,000 ships were no more difficult than 10. Within minutes, the Grand Armada was gone. The largest military fleet in galactic history had vanished without a trace, leaving Supreme Warlord Sci-Fi alone in empty space, with only a handful of surviving ships. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Humanity had done the impossible again, making an entire armada disappear. The Draconian hegemony, which had dominated the galaxy for centuries, suddenly found itself without a military force. In the aftermath, everything changed. The Galactic Council offered Earth a permanent seat with veto power over all major decisions. Trade agreements flooded in from every corner of known space. Military alliances were proposed by dozens of species who wanted Earth's protection. Admiral Jake Morrison was promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. Dr. Lisa Bennett became humanity's first galactic ambassador. The species that had once ignored Earth were now competing to gain favor with the new galactic superpower. The Draconian hegemony began to collapse as subjugated worlds declared independence, knowing that Earth would protect them from retaliation. The age of conquest through military force was ending, replaced by an era where defensive superiority ruled the galaxy. Humanity had achieved something no other species had ever managed. They had become the dominant galactic power, not through conquest, but through an absolute defense that made them effectively invincible. The displaced Draconian fleets remained humanity's secret, trapped in a parallel dimension where they could cause no harm. Earth had learned that the greatest strength wasn't the ability to destroy enemies, but the power to make them simply disappear. The galaxy would never be the same again, and humanity stood at the center of a new galactic order built on protection rather than domination. The age of human insignificance was over. The age of human guardianship had begun.